Today, I would say that we have the largest and most advanced psychedelic drug discovery program in the history of the world. That's over 25 chemists working around the clock, developing completely novel psychedelics and very targeted therapies, very potent therapies. And we believe we've created what are likely to be best-in-class drugs in psychedelic medicine.
Ian Mcdonald is back from Minds Biosciences Inc, trading on NASDAQ under the symbol DRUG, same symbol on the CSE. Ian, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Ian, you were last with us in July this year. What's happened with Bright Minds since then?
Well, lots has happened. We have been admitted onto NASDAQ, so we had a nice uplisting there. We have been working hard in the lab. Things are going exceptionally well there. Our science has progressed considerably. Today, I would say that we have the largest and most advanced psychedelic drug discovery program in the history of the world. That's over 25 chemists working around the clock, developing completely novel psychedelics. And some of the properties that we've seen in these compounds are exceptional. These are outside of ergotamines, which are drugs like LSD. These are the most potent psychedelics that have ever been created. They're not only potent, but they're very targeted, meaning that they do what we want them to do and don't act on other receptors, which could lead to side effects that we don't want to occur. So very targeted therapies, very potent therapies, and we believe we've created what are likely to be best-in-class drugs in psychedelic medicine.
Oh, that sounds great. So then, how soon until, I know that your lead candidate drug is going to be announced in the first quarter of 2022. How do you feel about the evolution of the industry generally in terms of the regulatory side? Is it sort of moving in lockstep with the development of the companies involved in the space?
Yeah, so I mean, the beautiful thing about developing drugs in the FDA pathway, which is drugs to be approved as prescription medications, is that is completely divorced from the DEA. So in the current regulatory framework, we would have no issue getting our drugs approved, nor would other companies and nonprofits getting their psychedelic drugs approved. MAPS is a nonprofit that's taking forward MDMA, or what's colloquially known as Molly or ecstasy, for treatment, for post-traumatic stress syndrome. And although that is a scheduled compound, both in the United States and Canada, once that's proven safe and efficacious to treat that indication, that will be a prescription medication. So the good news is we don't need any changes in order for our business to be successful. So I think that society's viewpoint is something that's coming around slowly, but with regard to the letter of the law, we have no issues developing our drugs at the moment.
Right. Wow, that's great. Okay, so then tell me a bit about your novel 5-HT2A. What are the sort of mental illnesses that are being targeted as treatment worthy by this drug?
Yeah, so I should just say that 5-HT is just a fancy way of saying serotonin. And serotonin, there are a number of different serotonin receptors. There's around 14 in your body. So the serotonin 2A receptor is the psychedelic receptor that's responsible for the psychedelic effects as well as the therapeutic action of these compounds. And the drugs that we're creating there are many. They have slightly different flavors, if you will. Some last longer, some are shorter acting in terms of duration of experience, and they have slightly different flavors in terms of their the specific serotonin receptors that they act on. All of them work on 5-HT2A, but some of them work on a couple different receptors as well. So those drugs that we're creating that work on serotonin 2A receptor can be applied to a number of different disease states. I would say that the one that's certainly been getting the most attention is depression, and these drugs certainly will work for depression, some better than others. But the therapeutic applications of psychedelic drugs go far beyond just depression or potentially PTSD and traditional neuropsychiatric indications. These drugs could potentially treat things like Alzheimer's and neurodegeneration. There have been some pilot studies that have been done in those fields with promising results to date, as well as I think you could look at some different neurological indications as well. So there's really a large gamut of disorders that these compounds can treat.
Yeah, sure. Well, anything for dementia, I'm thinking that's going to be my sweet spot.
I unfortunately that's a problem that's plaguing the world, and we have a drug that treats. So I think that the 5-HT2A drugs can treat the underlying condition of Alzheimer's and really stop people from developing dementia. That certainly has potential to, but our drugs. Different drugs of ours, our 5-HT2, what we call our 5-HT2C program, treats the symptoms, the negative symptoms that are associated with dementia. So if you have dementia, chances are you will develop a form of psychoses. And that could be, for instance, your grandmother who's living in the basement that think the FBI is out to get her, or there are aliens that are they're going to be coming in the house every night and doing all sorts of bad things. And this distortion from reality can frequently lead to agitation. And it's that agitation that typically results in a situation that devolves into something that's too disruptive to have that person in the house. And that's typically the catalyst for putting them into nursing homes. Now, the drugs to treat that psychoses are, they're typically addressed with hardcore schizophrenia drugs. Schizophrenia is a much more intense form of psychoses, and it's sort of like killing a mouse with a sledgehammer. It's a drug that doesn't necessarily perfectly fit the bill of addressing those symptoms for a dementia patient. So our drugs are, I'd say, a little less intense in terms of their action and are actually a perfect fit for somebody who's experiencing dementia-related psychoses and aggression.
Sure. Okay, interesting. I'm going to ask you a question that's actually personal at this point, because I have a friend whose son has been struggling with suicidal thoughts, so we'll say. And so I'm curious, because I have this personal relationship and situation and peripheral in my life, I'm wondering, how soon is it till I can say to my friend, hey, I can get your son into this program as an experimental sort of participant to sort of move this entire evolution of this new branch of mental health along? How soon till that's available to people like my friend's son?
So I would say that psilocybin to treat depression can be available through a doctor's prescription in as soon as, call it 2 to 3 years. However, if you're talking about experimental trials, there are efficacy trials that could be going on as soon as next year that your friend's son could potentially enroll into. And I think that if your friend's son is in a bind and lives in Vancouver, then many other places in Canada, there's a lot of ways to get psilocybin and different psychedelic compounds.
Sure, we're in Ontario here.
Okay. Yeah, maybe a little harder than our friends on the West Coast.
Right. Right. Okay. So finally, Ian, which of all of the various psychedelic compounds that you're developing, which of them excites you most and why?
Well, so we have developed a number of different compounds. We've created literally hundreds of novel psychedelics. Some look like psilocybin, which is an active ingredient in magic mushrooms. Others look like LSD. Other ones are completely novel chemical classes that don't really resemble anything that's been seen before. So the ones that excite me the most, there's a couple of compounds. We class them by number. We call this internally compound 114. 114 is one of the most potent psychedelics out there. It's hyper targeted to the therapeutic receptor, and we believe that this compound and one's analogs of it could be potentially the best in class agent to treat depression. So that still has to be borne out by science and data, but what we've seen so far, we really like and are excited by.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. All right, Ian, we're going to leave it there for now. I really appreciate the update. Sounds like you're making great progress. We'll come back to you soon enough, and thanks for your time today.
Thanks so much.
You bet. Bye for now.